They run through the savanna. They lurk in the thick forests and defy the icy desert. Zebras graze on the edge of the plains. The elephants cross the bushes, and the birds take flight with the mountains on the horizon. Hyenas smell blood for miles. The lions wait in the grasslands, and the leopard disappears in the dense forest. Never before has a habitat been so diverse. This is Kilimanjaro and the wildlife on the roof of Africa. Here, the immense savanna comes to an end, and an imposing ecosystem, unique on the planet, rises up. In this place, the mountains touch the sky. The forests emerge as impenetrable barriers, and in just a few kilometers, the warm plain turns into icy glaciers. In the lowlands, giraffes, lanky beasts, browse the acacia trees, while African buffaloes, creatures as dark as night, graze the last remnants of the savanna. With the end of what was thought to be an endless plain, a thick rainforest appears on the horizon, and olive baboons and colobus monkeys soon turn this rich ecosystem into their personal paradise. However, among the thick vegetation, a figure appears to put an end to all hope of survival. The leopard, an apex predator in this isolated ecosystem, stalks its prey from the shadows, unnoticed, but representing a sign of impending doom. The birds flee to the safety of the skies at the sight of the figure of the wild predator, while the dik-diks run at full speed through the thickets. On the fringes of tropical forests, where tall grass is the perfect hiding place, the serval cat, a tiny but ruthless killer, moves slowly, waiting for another living creature to approach its isolated habitat. Crossing the inhospitable moor, thousands of meters high, where the air is difficult to breathe, and the cliffs flood the landscape, the majestic bearded vulture proclaims itself as the master of the mountain, observing the infinity of this untamed ecosystem. Located in northeastern Tanzania, in the middle of wild East Africa, Kilimanjaro is a mountain of about 5,891 meters of altitude, formed by 3 dormant volcanoes. It's almost 6 kilometers high, which make it touch the sky, position this imposing mountain as the highest independent mountain in the world. Emerging from the bowels of the earth more than 2 million years ago, Kilimanjaro rises like a sleeping giant in the middle of the African plain. The abysmal elevations of the Earth's crust create a different ecosystem at each altitude, where the infinite savanna, dense tropical forests, a serene paramo, the silent alpine desert, and the icy glaciers at the top of the mountain coexist. Each landscape of this imposing mountain is a questioning of whether we are even still on the planet. In this mixture of biomes, where heights rule life, temperatures are a true reflection of altitude. While the low slopes hover around 30 degrees Celsius, at the icy summit, the thermometer drops to 20 degrees below zero. Being located in the middle of the intertropical convergence zone, the climate of this complex ecosystem alternates between dry and rainy seasons, where, of course, altitude also plays an important role. During the rainy season, torrential rainfall creates life in the surrounding savanna and rainforest, dyeing the base of the towering mountain green, while the paramo disappears in thick fog, and the alpine desert and summit are lashed by snowfall. While the sub-zero temperatures at the top of the mountain eliminate all hope of life, only a few thousand meters from the summit, nature provides an unprecedented setting for wildlife, with zebras grazing, elephants devouring entire trees, and buffalo enjoying the best pastures. Of course, not even in an ecosystem where reality blends with fiction like Kilimanjaro can wild species escape the law of nature, where you are either predator or you become prey. And in the midst of this diverse habitat, no species is less willing to become prey than the glorious kings of the savanna. Inhabiting the lowlands, where the heights of towering Kilimanjaro have not wreaked havoc on their warm and welcoming biome, The lion prides take advantage of the abundance brought by the rains to strike terror into the herbivores, and along the way, grab a juicy kill. While the tropical forests represent an impassable barrier for these felines, the boundaries of the savanna, where these two biomes collide, are still under their domain, and these voracious predators let any potential prey that crosses their path know it. Living in herds of between 10 and 15 felines, only a large prey can satiate the inordinate desire for meat of these skilled predators. Although the task of bringing food to the herd is generally in the hands of the females, due to their greater agility and ability to go unnoticed, when it comes to hunting a large prey, the alpha male can be involved in this feat. The tactic is simple, but at the same time effective. When stalking prey of considerable size, such as giraffes, zebras, or buffaloes, the felines plan their ambush with the utmost stealth, taking care of even the slightest movement so as not to give any indication of their presence. While the prey is distracted grazing, the lions can almost taste the feast they are about to devour. To ensure their hunting success, as skilled strategists, lionesses keep in constant communication, even while silently stalking their prey. Through subtle head, ear, and tail movements, they warn their hunting companions about the location of the prey and the strategy to follow. Being as close as possible to the target, and with all the hunters in position, the alarm is sounded, and the felines come out of their hiding places, surprising the unfortunate prey, which, in a matter of seconds, are completely besieged by these voracious predators. Sometimes, in the chaos of the ambush, the victim manages to momentarily slip out of the trap, and the hunters embark on a brief chase that inevitably ends with the lionesses catching the herbivore with their sharp claws and sending it to a better life with their dreaded bite. In case the alpha male did not join the hunt, a moment when his presence will not be long in coming is when the lionesses have killed the animal and the feast is about to begin. For, as king of the pride, he imposes his power by serving himself before everyone else. On occasion, the presence of the alpha can be helpful when the lionesses have given chase to a large prey, as it often takes an active part in defending the food, especially when scavengers such as hyenas want to come and take their share. Although a lioness of more than 100 kilograms is a more than formidable enemy for the carnivorous invaders, the presence of the flamboyant alpha often makes the hyenas not even dare to approach, as they know that a gigantic male of almost 200 kilograms will not mince words and will instantly kill anyone who is going to mess with their food. After enjoying a hearty meal, the entire herd usually rests under the shade of a leafy tree. Resting up to 20 hours a day, these felines save all their energy for hunting. A time when the alpha will spare no energy is when the females of his large herd come into heat, and they begin to emit olfactory signals as well as vocalizations to indicate to the male that he is available for mating. The alpha, who will not let this opportunity pass him by, appears on the scene and immediately follows the fertile female to mount her. Copulating up to 40 times in one day, the male will be sure to spread his lineage through as many females as possible. Since, as a survival mechanism, all lionesses of breeding age tend to come into estrus at the same time, the alpha has a busy few days ahead of him. After having finished his task, the exhausted male will only have to wait for nature to do its work, and the seed he sowed, in only 110 days, will become new cubs for the herd. When the birth of the cubs approaches, the mother isolates herself from the rest of the herd, in a safe place where she can hide the cubs from the dangers that surround Kilimanjaro. Usually, a thicket or a small cave is the perfect place to welcome the cubs. With the birth of between 1 and 4 cubs weighing approximately 1.5 kilograms, the mother must take full responsibility for the care of the cubs. At birth, the cubs are born completely blind and unable to walk, so they are far from being able to fend for themselves. During the first weeks of life, the mother will choose to keep her cubs away from the herd, feeding them with her nutritious milk and constantly moving them around to avoid attracting predators. Although, when they grow up, they will be majestic felines that will impose their will on other species in the ecosystem. At their young age, they are easy prey for hyenas and leopards, and even mammals such as African buffaloes will not hesitate to kill these young cubs before they become their tormentors. One of the biggest challenges for this devoted mother comes at hunting time, because, although the cubs do not eat meat, she must stay strong to keep producing milk and be able to protect them. Accustomed to hunting in herds, the female has to take care of vulnerable prey such as calves or wounded specimens. Here, gazelles, wild boars, and zebra and wildebeest calves are not to be underestimated. When the cubs reach 6 to 8 weeks of age, the mother decides to incorporate them progressively into the herd, where they will gradually relate to the other members. If simultaneously other females arrive with cubs, the adaptation process for the cubs is much easier, and in just a few days they start to play carefree with their half-siblings. Although the relationship with the adults can be a little difficult, and in the first days they will prefer to approach only their mother. As the days go by after their incorporation into the herd, they may even try to play with other adults. While the young cubs are slowly joining the herd life, getting to know the wild world around them, and tasting meat for the first time, not far from there, some giants see their favorite food in the heights of the trees. Although they may seem tiny next to the majestic Kilimanjaro, at almost 6 meters tall, giraffes are the tallest of all land animals. While the lions use the remnants of the savanna surrounding Kilimanjaro to hide and stalk their prey, these lanky mammals take advantage of the abundance of the large acacia trees to browse with their long, prehensile tongues. Unlike the kings of the savanna, who live in large, cohesive herds where social bonds are close, giraffes often live in groups where members change in a matter of hours. Surprisingly, the males of this species tend to be extremely sociable with each other, forming bachelor groups, where they establish a dominance hierarchy. And of course, when you have a muscular neck over 2 meters long, you must use it to show your group mates who is in charge. When two males cross paths with the intention of leading a group of bachelors, or disputing the right to procreate, the earth trembles before a duel where two giants weighing more than a ton collide. During combat, the huge beasts will use their massive necks as clubs to strike their opponents with ruthless force. Just one blow can cause serious injury to an opponent, taking him out of the battle and thwarting his intentions to be the dominant male of the group. While most of the time giraffes have a peaceful and sociable behavior, for the males, when there is a close group of females in heat, all that pacifism is left behind, and only the fittest will be left with such a prize at stake. After a day full of fights, where the dominant male defended his privileged position, the sun sets, and the giraffes prepare themselves for an absolutely revitalizing nap of no more than 10 minutes. While the other species inhabiting Kilimanjaro's neighborhood plunge into the arms of Morpheus, these spotted giants sleep only a maximum of 4 hours a day, and in very short periods. And as if that were not enough, in these short naps they do not even get very comfortable, as they usually sleep standing up, since lifting a long neck of more than 2 meters is not a particularly easy task. Resting upright and with their eyes half open, these mammals remain alert at all times, for they are well aware that in the wild ecosystem they inhabit, a sleeping giraffe is a giraffe eaten. Thanks to their keen sense of vision, which allows them to see more than a mile away, these lizards can avoid becoming part of the menu for most of the predators that plague their home on the edge of the savanna, just where Kilimanjaro creates a green barrier represented by the rainforests. While adult specimens are out of reach of leopards, hyenas, or wild dogs thanks to their imposing size, When it comes to fleeing from a herd of hungry lions, there is no height that counts. And these skilled hunters are more than capable of getting their hands on a prey as substantial as a giraffe. The opposite is true of the young calves, which are in the sights of countless carnivores, who will be more than happy to devour the soft flesh of a calf. In such a wild habitat where the only law is survival, and the innocent calves sometimes march without any protection, they are an easy and not at all despicable prey. Of course, if a lion dares to mess with a giraffe calf with its mother nearby, rather than a good meal in its mouth, you can expect a powerful kick right to its skull. Females take the task of caring for their young very seriously and will not think twice about responding aggressively to any danger to their naive calf, even if it means having to fight off an entire herd of felines. Although using their long necks and sturdy legs as weapons, these stretched mammals can protect themselves from even such formidable enemies as lions. To defend themselves against a much smaller foe, they will need help from another species. Giraffes' striking fur often harbors a host of parasites such as ticks, which, in addition to being annoying, can affect their health. To solve this annoying problem, giraffes receive support from the efficient oxpeckers, which will go through every part of their fur, enjoying devouring what for them are nutritious snacks. In addition to lending them a hand, or rather a beak, by removing parasites from their skin, beaks also alert these lanky mammals to the presence of potential predators by becoming restless, making them more than useful guests for these long-necked giants. While the lush tropical forests at the foot of Kilimanjaro represent an impenetrable barrier for the majestic giraffes, the colobus gariza make this dense jungle their personal oasis. With a distinctive white coat standing out against a pitch-black coat, these monkeys are the perfect example of the vast biodiversity that haunts Kilimanjaro in its festival of biomes. Also known as mantled goriza, they have a striking face framed in white fur, as well as a long tail that ends in a dense tuft. Living in groups of up to 15 individuals, when these monkeys are not swinging among the branches of the dense forest, they are most likely resting, as they can rest for up to 12 hours a day. Contrary to the sleepless giraffes, the goriza do take advantage of the night to rest, while they prefer to take advantage of the daylight to carry out the tasks of their busy itinerary. As soon as the sun peaks over the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, these primates take to the trail, leaving their resting trees to roam the forest in search of food. Of course, being prodigious tree climbers, there is no need to even touch the ground to travel great distances through the forest. Leaping between tree branches, monkeys can reach virtually anywhere in their corner of this verdant ecosystem. When colobus gariza come out in search of food, unless you're a fresh leaf, there's not much to fear. Most of the diet of these herbivores is made up of those nutritious leaves that abound in the treetops of these thick forests, so food is not usually a challenge for them. However, aware that in an ecosystem as delicate and ever-changing as Kilimanjaro, one cannot be pretentious when it comes to eating. These primates have no objection to feeding on bark, wood, seeds, flowers, fruits, and even soil. Just as in lean times, they can adapt to eating practically anything that crosses their path, in the days of plenty, they can become exquisite, traveling long distances to find more nutritious leaves. Given the low competition for food, colobus gariza groups tend to have an egalitarian social structure, where there is no dominance or privileged members. These groups often consist of a male, some females, and juveniles. While other primate species base their coexistence on violence and intimidation, these gentle monkeys prefer to spend much of their day grooming each other. Although they tend to live in harmony among members of the same group, when intergroup encounters occur, males may bring out their wild side and defend what is rightfully theirs. Usually, the sticking point is represented by a female or ownership of a feeding area. When facing each other, males tend to move on from physical combat and limit the encounter to displays, chases, and vocalizations. And speaking of vocalizations, when it comes to communication, mantled goriza are simply unparalleled. As a habit, the adult male of the group usually roars loudly early in the morning as soon as the sun rises, as well as when the last rays of the sun are extinguished at the top of the mountain. This roar can be heard more than a kilometer away. When the group goes foraging, the communicative skills of these primates are crucial, as they can keep in contact, controlling their spreading distance. Also, postures, body movements, touches, and facial expressions are other forms of communication they employ, creating more than complicated dialects. Although it may seem like the perfect life, the truth is that not everything is hunky-dory for these monkeys, because just as they choose to live a peaceful life devouring leaves in the treetops from the heights, one of their main enemies roams freely. For the crowned eagle, a monkey weighing more than 10 kilograms is a meal by no means negligible and within reach of its sharp talons. To escape these birds of prey, the colobus always keep a constant watch of the sky, even appointing a sentry to do the job of raising the alarm in case they see something out of the ordinary. Although the idea that, in a matter of seconds, a gigantic bird would appear out of nowhere and devastate one of the primates is entirely plausible, it is nowhere near the primate's greatest fear in this ferocious ecosystem dominated by an all-powerful feline. Hidden among the thick vegetation, this big cat appears without warning and is the scourge of the colobus groups. While the monkeys deal with the wild leopard, not far from the borders between the savanna and the mountain forest, another species tries to spend its days without worries. Although it has not been favored by Mother Nature with its peculiar appearance, this does not prevent the warthog from enjoying Kilimanjaro's rich habitat. With large bumps on its face commonly called warts, a barrel-shaped body, and a single ridge of hair running down its back, this mammal has a rather unique appearance. Inhabiting from the savanna surrounding Kilimanjaro to more than 3,000 meters high in the heart of the mountain, this adept mammal is accustomed to entering the dense forests, where it can go completely unnoticed, hidden in the thick vegetation. While females tend to live in small groups with their young, males prefer to spend their days in solitude, searching for food, and marking their territory with the help of the sebaceous glands located on their face. The warthog, like the colobus, is another faithful believer that when it comes to food, nothing should go to waste. As good omnivores, these wild pigs are capable of devouring anything within reach of their mouths. From grasses, fruits, berries, eggs, carrion, and they can even bring out their wild instinct by eating small mammals. Having a poor sense of sight, it uses its prodigious sense of smell to easily locate food even under rocks. With the help of its prominent fangs, it can rummage around and dig up tubers or any hidden snacks. After a long day of foraging for sustenance, this pig often takes a restful rest, perching in any hole that seems comfortable. Although it is an excellent digger, it prefers to occupy burrows built by other animals. Why waste energy digging when you can take advantage of the work of others? Although capable of going up to a month without drinking water during the dry months, warthogs love to bathe in small mud puddles and wetlands. So whenever they have the opportunity, they take the opportunity to cool off and wash their skin. Lacking sweat glands, these occasional showers are essential to maintain its temperature. One of the most unique behaviors of this mammal is that, when it comes to hydrate itself in a tributary, it rests on its two front legs. Although these relatives of the pigs usually lead a quiet life, even with some males living together in harmony, sometimes there are challenges of strength between them, where two males challenge each other, ramming each other, and headbutting each other hard, while grunting and pushing the opponent hard. This is when, what at first glance look like warts, turn into very useful thickening of the skin that gives them efficient armor. While most of the time these confrontations are just a challenge and do not escalate, sometimes the situation gets out of hand and one of the pigs can get seriously injured. Another time when warthogs can become aggressive is when a predator wants to make them part of its diet. Despite being generally pacifist, if a carnivore wants to get smart with this pig, it will show that its tusks, up to 20 centimeters long, are not at all ornamental and will go straight to ram its aggressor. Although its prominent tusks can even pierce a lion's abdomen, when stalked by predators, the first alternative is always to disappear into the grasslands or thick vegetation. To stay out of trouble, warthogs use their sense of smell and keen hearing to detect potential threats before they even approach their corner of the mountain. Although this wild pig is a survivor in an ecosystem that can be hostile, sometimes there is nothing it can do to avoid becoming prey. Hidden among the branches of the trees, without the slightest movement giving it away. When the leopard stalks prey, the verdict is already in. As an all-powerful apex predator in this isolated biome, the feline positions itself at the top of the food chain, punishing with its fearsome jaws anything that crosses its path. Despite an average weight of 70 kilograms, the leopard is the smallest of the big cats. However, its small size, compared to its colossal relatives, does not prevent it from dominating the dense tropical forests of Kilimanjaro with an iron fist. Watching everything from high up in the branches, thanks to its camouflaged yellow fur with black rosettes, this feline can go completely unnoticed, while the rest of the wild species are not even aware of the danger they are in. The agile body and its set of sharp retractable claws make this big cat a born climber, capable of reaching the treetops in just seconds. The habit of perching high in the forest without even a hint of its presence ensures that the rest of the wild inhabitants of this corner of the mountain can never rest easy, because in an instant, a gigantic feline can literally fall from the sky and devour them with its bloodthirsty bite. Precisely, one of the leopard's favorite strategies is to stay hidden high up in the branches, patiently waiting for an unfortunate prey to fall into its trap. As a good apex predator, this feline makes no excuses for inflicting fear on other species, devouring everything from birds, monkeys, and snakes to wild boar, deer, and gazelles. Although it has extraordinary physical skills such as sharp claws and a jaw with razor-sharp teeth, this feline's greatest virtue when hunting is its infinite patience. With its cold stare and surprising stealth, without showing even the slightest sign of its bloody intentions, the leopard will even spend hours stalking prey or preparing an ambush until someone takes the bait. As soon as he sees the opportunity, this voracious hunter will not hesitate for a second to shoot his lunge, jumping from the top of a branch straight to his prey. With dense vegetation on their side, fending off such a ruthless attack is practically an impossible mission, and the felid, once again, claims the life of another wild Kilimanjaro inhabitant. Although ambushes by jumping directly on the humanity of its prey is its best tactic to obtain daily sustenance, in places where tropical forests collide with the savanna, this skilled predator has no problem hiding among the grasslands and obtaining food by attacking its prey from the ground. Being able to run at almost 60 kilometers per hour and jump up to 6 meters, few species can live to tell the tale of an encounter with this ruthless hunter. Although in the deep mountain forests the leopard is the lord and master of the food chain, when it travels at lower altitudes, it does not enjoy the same privileges, as species such as lions or hyenas assert their numerical superiority to harass the feline. Although these encounters with herds and clans of carnivores rarely end in a fatal outcome, when prey is at stake, the felid often has to remain on an empty stomach, watching others enjoy the effort of the hunt. Generally, if it is not fast enough to get its prey up into the high treetops, it ends up paying a heavy price. Thanks to its enormous strength and enviable climbing skills, it is able to carry even prey that exceeds it in size up to 15 meters above the ground. There, in the heights, the fork of a branch will serve as a pantry, where the feline will be able to feed quietly for days without worrying about being the victim of theft. Another measure he usually employs to evade theft is to prefer higher areas of the mountain, where the thick vegetation acts as a wall between him and opportunists who want a meal at such a low cost. When it is not sending its victims to the warm shelter of death with its powerful jaw, or resting placidly on a comfortable tree branch, the feline is most likely guarding the boundaries of its property. To keep conspecifics away, the feline scatters its urine and feces throughout its territory, and leaves scratches on trees as a warning signal to any intruder who might want to invade its territory. Like the colobus goriza, the solitary leopard is one of those species that break the deafening silence of Kilimanjaro's heights. While not capable of roaring like the lion, the felid emits calls similar to a harsh bark, which can be heard up to 3 kilometers away. Aside from the fact that most of the time they prefer to lead a solitary life, on occasions when they are surprisingly friendly, upon encountering a fellow species, they may emit a friendly greeting in the form of a snorting or panting sound. Also, showing that, regardless of their ferocity, they are still cats. When they feel happy, they express their joy in the form of purrs. While the leopard continues its life in the shadows wandering in the undergrowth, there is one giant who, try as he might, could never go unnoticed. As the world's largest land animal, African elephants are not very good at hiding. With a weight of up to 10,000 kilograms and a height of almost 8 meters, these giants are a species that perfectly reflects the majesty of Kilimanjaro. Inhabiting the surrounding savanna areas, the passage of the herds of these huge mammals provides an unparalleled landscape with the mountain rising up to the sky. The largest land animal on the planet and the highest freestanding mountain in the world appear on the same postcard. Walking peacefully for miles in search of food, elephant herds make the earth vibrate with their passing. The groups often consist of related females and their young calves. In the social hierarchy of these giants, unlike lions, where an alpha male holds the reins, the oldest female, called the matriarch, guides the group's destiny. Although there may be some adult males in these herds, they often opt for a solitary life, appearing only during the breeding season, or establishing groups of single males, where testosterone reaches unimaginable levels. For the aging matriarch, the task of governing the group's destiny, more than a privilege, is a responsibility, as she will be the one to decide the path to follow to reach the sources of water and food. Relying on her immaculate elephant memory, the matriarch will recall the feeding grounds she has visited in her life, and lead the herd to that promised land where they can drink and eat their fill. As good herbivores, these giant mammals feed on grasses, herbs, leaves, branches, bark, fruits, and even tubers. Of course, to keep a huge body going, these enormous beasts need huge amounts of up to 200 kilograms of fodder per day. Since there is no ecosystem in the world that can meet this demanding quota without being decimated, the numerous herds often travel up to hundreds of kilometers to satisfy their appetites. Unlike the warthog, which can go for weeks without even knowing what a sip of water is, An adult African elephant requires more than 200 liters of this vital liquid to stay hydrated. So that in addition to these marathon marches to places full of vegetation, there are some technical stops to refuel. Thanks to their long trunks, elephants do not even need to bend down to quench their thirst by drinking from wetlands and rivers, as they simply suck the water into their trunks and then expel it into their mouths. But this is not the only function that these gray giants give to this useful tool given to them by Mother Nature. Elephants use their versatile trunks for tasks as delicate as picking up food from the ground, to tasks that require brute strength such as felling trees. The uses of this multifunctional tool range from serving as a weapon to attack their enemies, to playing an important role in the tactile interrelationships of these mammals, to being the instrument responsible for their famous trumpeting. And speaking of this peculiar sound, elephants use their vocalizations to communicate with their conspecifics, as well as to express their emotions. These gentle giants are one of the species with the closest bonds in the entire wild kingdom. While lionesses hide their cubs when they give birth, female elephants, soon after their cubs are born, introduce them to the herd, and the adults visit the little ones, weighing up to 120 kilos, to meet them and greet them with a light touch of their trunks. Likewise, when a specimen has passed away, the herd shows its respect to the deceased, even staying next to the corpse for a while, and some adults, in a show of reverence, touch the forehead of the deceased with their trunks. Thanks to the colossal size of these giants, and living for the most part in numerous prides, there are very few dangers that they can face in their peaceful routine. This, however, is not the case with the cubs, which are often the target of lion prides, which often end up being the bone of contention for these usually gentle mammals to pounce with their long ivory fangs against the felines. In addition to when their young are in danger, another situation in which these huge beasts bring out their wild side is precisely if there is a fertile female in contention. When mating season arrives, the gigantic testosterone-filled males take to the fighting arena to battle it out in a clash of living mountains for the right to extend their lineage. Before even getting to the physical confrontation, these monsters demonstrate their ferocity by raising their heads and ears to look even bigger and show off their long fangs. In addition, intimidating sweeps of the ground with their trunks are never to be missed. If these demonstrations of force and vigor do not produce results, violence remains the only alternative to resolve the dispute. During the battle, both elephants will charge directly at their opponent's body, trying to knock him down or wound him with their sharp tusks. The duration of the duel can vary, depending on the motivation of both contestants. It can range from just a few seconds to several minutes. Thanks to their thick skin, which functions as armor, both opponents usually come out of these fights, no matter how intense they are, without serious injuries, and one of the giants ends up giving in, giving up their intentions of mating, and leaving the way clear for the winner. Back in the thick tropical forests that dye the Kilimanjaro lowlands green, another wild species makes its presence felt, but this time not because of its colossal size, but because of its deafening vocalizations. As soon as the sun peeks through the imposing peak of Kilimanjaro, the olive baboons awaken their entire neighborhood with their vast repertoire of grunts, barks, cries, and cooing. Living in groups of up to hundreds of specimens, these monkeys are faithful believers that there is strength in unity, as this is the only way they have managed to create their own corner in such a wild and changing ecosystem as this one. When looking at the fur of these primates, it is not very difficult to guess where their name comes from. Because from a distance it is a grayish-green tone, camouflaging itself quite well with its environment. In addition to living in a family, one of the secrets to the survival of these monkeys in their isolated habitat lies in their ability to adapt. Just as they can enjoy the months of abundance, where the rains stain the forest with a deep green and food sprouts everywhere, the olive baboons will not hesitate to tighten their belts when the lean season arrives, and food, more than a necessity, becomes a privilege. Thanks to not making excuses when it comes to eating, as good omnivores, these primates will literally put in their mouths whatever falls from the sky. Thanks to their ability to forage at all levels of the ecosystem, these monkeys are generally assured of 3 meals a day. While other species simply scavenge on the ground or scramble along branches looking for something to put in their stomachs, olive baboons virtually sweep their entire feeding area, leaving not a single rock unchecked. The very varied diet of these primates ranges from leaves, grasses, roots, fruits, larvae, worms, and scorpions to small rodents, birds, and surprisingly other primates. Even when the situation is urgent, several of these primates can hunt small antelopes and feast like kings. The baboon's efficient task of digging in every corner of the soil in search of food plays a very important role in soil aeration by digging up roots and tubers. Likewise, through seed dispersal, these primates contribute their grain of sand to the preservation of their privileged ecosystem. Since in the hierarchy of olive baboons, as in that of lions, males, upon reaching sexual maturity, must leave the group, they are forced to find a new troop that will accept them. Of course, is a measure of the dominant males, to eliminate from the root the competition for the command of the troop, as well as for the females. When finding a new group, the process of incorporation of a new male can be somewhat complicated. One thing that greatly facilitates the integration of the outsider into the group is to establish a social friendship with a female. In these somewhat unique bonds, which begin as a non-sexual affiliation, the male is responsible for protecting the female and her young, even babysitting while the mother goes off in search of food. In these relationships, male baboons often become attached to their young, grooming them and protecting them from any potential threat. Although it may seem that in this bond the female takes advantage of the male, everything is coldly calculated, and over time, the pair become inseparable, grooming each other, spending the whole day together. Occasionally, the luckier males take the plunge and get to mate with what until recently were only their female friends. On the other hand, those who have not been so lucky must be content with the ease of integration into the group provided by their faithful friend. Just as the delicate ecosystem of Kilimanjaro is changeable, the hierarchy of the olive baboons is also dynamic, and many times, a specimen that enters the group with the help of a female, with the passage of time becomes the dominant male in the group. Of course, to occupy this privileged place with access to the best food and females in the group, he must duel with the blatant alpha. As in the African elephant world, prior to physical combat, both opponents, hoping to avoid bloodshed, put on formidable displays of strength by baring their teeth, growling and pounding the ground with their large hands. In most cases, neither the alpha nor the challenger is willing to back down, and a fierce fight is about to break out in the middle of the rainforest. In this one, biting, scratching, and shoving are the order of the day. One of the two primates may be seriously injured, or at least scarred for life. When a new regent takes the helm of the group, sometimes the displaced alpha may remain in the troop, waiting for his opportunity to take back what, from his point of view, belongs to him. While the majestic olive baboons have an infinite diet, devouring everything that passes in front of them, the intrepid lemurgier leaves aside the benefits of a balanced diet, prefers to eat only the food that gives it its name. With a wingspan of up to 3 meters and a weight of 7 kilograms, this bird of prey is one of the species capable of living at the highest altitudes on the mighty Kilimanjaro. Leaving the tropical forests far behind, this wild inhabitant of the skies frequents the alpine desert of the mountain, the very place where temperatures can drop to 0 degrees at night. Despite being a vulture, the bearded vulture looks remarkably different from the rest of these traditionally scavenger birds. For to begin with, it does not have that unmistakable bald head. Although the plumage of this bird of prey is white, especially on the chest and belly, given its habit of bathing in pools of iron deposits, it is tinged with shades of reddish-orange. Another distinctive feature of this peculiar vulture is the presence of a feathery beard under its sharp beak, which has also given it the name of bearded vulture. The plumage on the head and the very name of these birds give a few signs of their fascinating diet. The bearded vulture, unlike other vultures, does not put its head in carcasses and has an almost exclusively osteophagous diet. That is, it feeds on bones. When this majestic bird sees some scavengers devouring a carcass, it knows that its meal is practically assured, since competition for these leftovers is almost nil. After lions, hyenas, crows, and other vultures have feasted, the lammergeier lands on the scene to claim its share. When only large bones are left in the leftovers, this bird of prey, in a show of ingenuity, takes its share of the feast and flies to a rocky area of the mountain. Dropping them from hundreds of feet in the air, no bone can resist the fall, and soon the bird lands to claim its nutritious, high-calcium morsels. Although it was previously believed that the bird only fed on the bone marrow of carcasses, the truth is that it gobbles the bones whole, in pieces of up to 20 centimeters. Although bones without even vestiges of meat are not a particularly coveted food in this habitat full of inveterate carnivores, the lammergeier will glide over areas of up to 30 square kilometers in search of a carcass from which to obtain its exotic meal. Of course, in order to have a diet that is not at all easy to digest, this bird of prey needs to have a highly specialized digestive system. The stomach of the lammergeier is up to 100 times more acidic than that of a human, which allows it to digest its very dense food in just 24 hours. Despite its name, this bird, an expert in austere living, sometimes devours food other than nutritious bones. When it has the opportunity, for example, to tear off a piece of meat from carcasses, it will not think twice about incorporating it into its diet. Similarly, if on one of those long treks across Kilimanjaro in search of carrion, it spots a small reptile, or perhaps a mouse, this bird of prey will differentiate itself even more as a vulture by taking on the task of hunting its own food. One of the most ruthless behaviors of these birds, and perhaps of all the wild inhabitants of Kilimanjaro, is when it spots a defenseless turtle. As soon as it has it in its sights, the lammergeier will grab it with its dreaded talons and carry it hundreds of meters off the ground, dropping it and landing on the rocky surface to pick up the remains of its ruthless act. Leaving aside how nutritious these meals can be, more than 80% of their diet is made up of bones. After spending up to 11 hours soaring through the skies in search of food, and with a full stomach, the lammergeier decides to return to its cozy home, usually a comfortable cave in a steep mountain area, near a cliff from where it can throw the bones brought home. Although from such heights it may have an enviable view and be thousands of meters away from any disturbance to its solitary lifestyle, if prey is scarce near its habitat, the lammergeier will not think twice and will seek new horizons where it can feed. Thanks to living thousands of meters away from most large carnivores and leading an elusive life, this bird has no natural predators, being able to reach a longevity of up to 40 years. At least 3,000 meters away from the habitat of the wild lammergeier, where the icy Arctic desert turns into a warm savanna, lives another species that also crushes bones. However, unlike the bird of prey, hyenas do so using their powerful jaws. Living in clans of up to hundreds, hyenas are another of the voracious carnivores that inhabit the lowlands surrounding Kilimanjaro. With a robust, muscular body and long, strong limbs and a powerful jaw, Spotted hyenas are the terror of any ungulate peacefully grazing around the mountain. Although their reputation as efficient scavengers precedes them, the truth is that hyenas are primarily hunters, taking care of bringing food to their table themselves. Working as a team, a clan of hyenas has nothing to envy a pride of lions when it comes time to hunt. Contrary to felines that see stealth as their tool for ambushes, hyenas are a bit more rudimentary, but equally effective, preferring to chase their prey for miles, until fatigue does the job, and they end up giving in to their bite. Whether wildebeest, zebra, buffalo, or antelope, no prey can escape when a large clan of these hungry carnivores is on its trail. When catching their prey, while lions are completely protocol, and wait for the alpha male to serve himself first, in the world of these carnivores, hierarchies do not exist at the time of eating, and the only rule is that there are no rules. Whoever gets there first gets as much as he can eat. At these banquets, little is wasted, and often there are not even leftovers for the hungry lammergier. After a good meal, the clan sets out to return to the comfort of their den, now with full stomachs. Since they had to travel long distances to catch their prey, the journey back may not be a short one. The den is usually a tunnel-shaped excavation with a chamber at the back, used for breeding or mating. Despite being excellent diggers, hyenas prefer to take advantage of someone else's work, and usually occupy holes dug by wild boars, hares, and jackals. Since they inhabit a matriarchal society, the mating season of hyenas is one of the most interesting of Kilimanjaro's wild species. When the rainy season fills the savanna with green pastures and, consequently, abundant prey, the hyenas decide that it is the ideal time to enlarge the clan and go into heat for about 2 weeks. With females in heat, males will submissively approach them in the hope that the dominant females will choose them to procreate. Spotted hyenas are little believers in the idea of true love and prefer to live a promiscuous life, copulating with countless partners. Contrary to other species where dominant males are the most successful during reproduction, in the peculiar social life of hyenas, those that are passive are the ones that end up mating with the best females. Upon receiving approval from a female, the pair will go to a more private location, often an area covered with dense vegetation, or the interior of the den, where they will copulate several times until the job is done. After a gestation period of about 110 days, 2 to 3 cubs weighing about 1.5 kilograms will be born. The cubs at birth have soft brown fur, as well as open eyes and sharp canines about 7 millimeters long. Just a few hours after birth, the cubs will face one of the first challenges of their lives, because these tiny hyenas, in order to eliminate competition for resources from the root, do not think twice and attack their siblings. These confrontations, although they may seem harmless, are not at all, and often end with a fatal outcome. Claiming the life of the weakest cub in the litter, it is the law of the fittest in its maximum representation. Although some puppies from an early age have begun their lives as ruthless savage killers, the truth is that, despite their precocious development, they will need their mother's care for a long time. Although from the age of 3 months they will be able to eat solid food, nursing is usually prolonged until at least 1 year of life. During their first days of life, the mother, as a jealous caretaker, will not tolerate other adults approaching her young, and will be overly aggressive towards anyone who comes near the den. Since the dens are usually for communal use, often up to 20 cubs are housed in a den. However, each female will be responsible for the exclusive care of her cubs. After a year of meticulous care by the mother, the not-so-little cubs will have been incorporated into all the tasks of the clan, including hunting, where they will demonstrate everything they have learned from their mother. Of course, If, while resting placidly under the shade of a tree, they smell the unmistakable odor of fresh meat, it is most likely because there is prey to steal. And here, hyenas will prove that a scavenger will always be a scavenger. The same rainy season that led the hyenas to enlarge their clan gives the majestic zebras endless fields full of green pastures on the north side of the mountain. Faced with such a waste of Mother Nature, these striped equines, with no time to lose, begin to devour all the grass that covers the savanna. While some Kilimanjaro-dwelling species, like the colobus goreza, strive to consume the most nutritionally dense foods, zebras don't care exactly what they put in their mouths and are not at all picky eaters. Although this habit is well appreciated by wildebeest and other herbivores, which take the best grasses, by feeding on low-value grasses, these equines need to eat large quantities of forage. In just one day, they can walk up to 20 kilometers, devouring some 9 kilograms of food. While they will maintain a strict diet as long as grasses are available, when the grass fields begin to run out, an occasional leaf or sprout won't go amiss. As good equines, zebras are extremely social animals, enjoying each other's company and establishing strong bonds with each other. Zebras usually live in groups called harems, where a dominant male lives with up to 6 mares and their young foals. Since equines are well aware that there are innumerable predators in the vicinity of their habitat that are eager to prey on them, they are well prepared to deal with any attack. When bloodthirsty hyena clans stalk a harem, the strategy is simple, yet effective. The mares are grouped in a circle, sheltering the foals inside, while the stallion is tasked with chasing away the carnivores. Although hyenas are extremely aggressive and very capable of besieging their prey to the point of fatigue, zebras are by no means unarmed. Just one kick from these robust equines can send predators such as hyenas, wild dogs, leopards, and even lions packing. Although a powerful kick can solve almost all the problems faced by zebras in their daily routine in this wild ecosystem, most of the time they choose to avoid conflicts with predators, keeping alert with the help of their prodigious vision, as well as a developed sense of hearing. As soon as they spot a predator intent on making them part of its diet, the herd, with the vastness of the plains at its disposal, undertakes an intelligent retreat to avoid conflict. Given their resemblance to horses, zebras are capable of walking, trotting, cantering, and galloping. The maximum speed that these striped animals can reach is up to 55 kilometers per hour, maintaining this pace for long distances. When a zebra is pursued by a predator, to evade its attack, it usually makes zigzag movements to confuse. If the carnivore makes the serious mistake of falling just behind the equine's hind legs, a kick can end the chase, showing the predator who is in charge. In addition to having very good hearing, zebras have a vast repertoire of vocalizations that allow them to communicate with their fellow species. Through whinnies and groans, these equines display a complex dialect, where not only vocalizations play a role, but also body postures and ear movements. The striking fur of these mammals, far from being decorative, offers them countless advantages in their daily lives. To begin with, when fleeing from predators, the pattern of black and white stripes confuses their pursuers, to such an extent that they do not even know clearly the boundaries of each prey. In addition to disorienting carnivores, the alternating colors in the coat of these equines is an important defense against flies and other biting insects, as they avoid landing on surfaces with striped patterns. Likewise, when battling the oppressive heat of the savanna, the striped pattern creates air currents that help these equines cool down. After demonstrating his power by fending off the ferocious hyenas in his harem, the stallion had better have regained his strength. For with mating season just around the corner, there will be more than a few males who will come forward to challenge his position in the group. When two stallions cross paths in the middle of the savannah, the challenging male approaches the dominant one by touching his nose to his adversaries, or rubbing his back in a show of intimidation. If neither of the contenders backs down, the altercation is inevitable, and both stallions attack their enemy by biting him directly on the neck and kicking him with powerful kicks. The winner retains the harem, at least for now, and all the benefits that come with having 6 mares approaching the rutting season, while the zebras continue to graze, and the stallion anxiously awaits the start of the mating season. Back in the heights, at about 4,000 meters of altitude, where the thick tropical forests turn into squalid grasslands, a feline advances carefully planning its ambush, but this time it is not the merciless leopard. Tiny in size, the agile serval lives in the solitude of Kilimanjaro's heights. There, in an invisible frontier, where the last vestiges of animal life show their wildest side. With a slender figure, weighing as little as 18 kilograms, and a small head with large ears, the fawn cat is one of the species that find the mixed biomes of Kilimanjaro a cozy home. Given its golden yellow coat with black spots, it is virtually impossible not to think of its larger relatives when you see this compact cat. Although smaller, it is important not to be fooled by the dimensions of this feline, because it is a born hunter, ready to respect its place in the food chain, in such an isolated habitat where it stands as a bloodthirsty predator. Although hunting large prey is practically impossible, partly because they do not even reach their isolated corner of the mountain, small rodents, birds, frogs, reptiles, and insects can testify firsthand to the prodigious hunting skills of this lanky feline. Thanks to its slender body, with surprisingly long legs for its stature, the serval is able to leap 2 meters in the air and reach surprising speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. As a good feline, imitating its more robust relatives, the preferred strategy of this agile hunter is the ambush. Using its camouflage fur and advanced stealth skills, this cat disappears into the grasslands, and with the help of its keen eyesight and fine-tuned hearing, detects the approach of potential prey. As soon as it sees its opportunity, the serval pounces on its victim with a single swipe, capturing it with its sharp claws and, if necessary, giving it the coup de grace with a bite. Since most of its prey weighs no more than 200 grams, this feline usually hunts several times a day. Fortunately for it. But unfortunately for the rodents of Kilimanjaro, the serval has a hunting efficiency of more than 50%, which places it even above its larger cousins. Although very cold and calculating during the hunt, when it is time to eat, this feline often lets haste get the better of him, and ends up choking and regurgitating the food. Although most of the time it devours its prey in seconds and swallows it in a single bite. Sometimes in a kind of macabre game, the feline enjoys the suffering of its prey, letting it escape for a few meters to capture it again, until it gets bored and ends up devouring it. After its nutritional needs are met, this wild cat usually rests during the day in a shady place, grooming itself and taking care of its striking fur. Another of the tasks performed by this felid is to mark its territory, because although it lives in such an isolated habitat, nothing assures it that another wild cat is not interested in occupying its plot of the mountain. For this, as a good feline, there is no other way than spreading its feces and urine along the limits of its territory. Although before any visitor, the fawn will prefer to enjoy its solitude, when an encounter between two specimens occurs, it usually does not reach a major point, as both felines prefer to avoid such bloodshed and continue on their way back where they came from. One encounter from which the fawn does not usually emerge unscathed is when it moves deeper into the lowlands of the mountain rainforests, where this feline loses its place as the all-powerful predator to the voracious leopard. Given the more than obvious physical disparities, sometimes the more diminutive feline gets the worst of it, becoming prey to a close relative. To stay away from the leopard's bite, the serval usually stays in higher mountain areas. where sightings of its distant cousins are almost non-existent. Although in a hand-to-hand confrontation against a leopard, the fawn has no chance of survival. Unfortunately, the biggest predator of this tiny but majestic feline is man. The degradation of the habitat of this small wild cat, as well as the illegal fur trade, has depleted serval populations throughout Africa, including in an ecosystem that until just a few years ago was considered virgin, Kilimanjaro. But this is not nearly one of the biggest challenges facing the highest mountain on the African continent. As a result of the effects of climate change, Kilimanjaro is losing the glaciers on its summit at a frightening pace. According to estimates, by 2040, the mountain will lose all its snow cover, something that could have repercussions throughout this delicate ecosystem. The consequent decrease in rainfall is one of the direct effects that are already being felt throughout each of the biomes of this colossal mountain. Especially in the savanna that surrounds the mountain and the tropical forests, rainfall is essential to provide life for millions of wild inhabitants. Without the torrential rainy season precipitation watering these lands, herbivore species would be forced to migrate to other destinations. And with this, the entire food chain of this biodiverse ecosystem would collapse. In addition to the challenges presented by climate change, many other wild inhabitants of Kilimanjaro face a personal battle for their survival as a result of human activities. The conversion of land for agriculture, as well as directly, the deforestation of large tracts of savanna has caused the migration of species such as zebras, giraffes, and wildebeests. Poaching is another of those practices that are decimating some populations of wild species, such as hyenas and elephants. In the case of these giant mammals, poachers, in a relentless war for the ivory in their tusks, and in a display of savagery, take the life of one of these majestic creatures. For fearsome felines such as lions and leopards, the story is not much different, as adult specimens are cruelly hunted and cubs are sold on the black market as exotic pets. Not even the solitary bearded vulture is exempt from being affected by the interference of human activities in its habitat, as this indomitable bird is a victim of prey poisoning, as well as poaching, which has led it to be cataloged as a near-threatened species. Despite all these ups and downs, the good news is that there is still time to reverse the effects of these practices on an ecosystem as rich and vast as Kilimanjaro. With changes aimed at the preservation of wild species, it is possible to restore this place to its former splendor and ensure that it remains a haven for animal life and a wonder of nature. Have you marveled at the stories of struggle, survival, and ferocity of the wild inhabitants of Kilimanjaro? Then don't forget to leave us your like, as well as to comment which animal was your favorite. Also, if you are interested in contributing to the preservation of this unique ecosystem in the world, you can support us by clicking on the notification bell and sharing this video with your friends. See you next time with more stories of wild lives.